Hi friends, now let's continue to our next session. And in this session, before getting deeper into the operating systems, let us first look what made the operating system come to exist. So let's see the history of the operating system. It all began in late 1970s and early 1980s when the computing world was ruled by variety of processors manufactured by Intel, Texas Instruments, Motorola, Zilog, AMD, and many more. So many processors were available. Each processor will have its own instruction set, will have its own architecture, will have its own IO connectivity and all. So they don't match with one another because they were independently manufactured by various companies, and hence a lot of variety was available. Then the computing world or the computer manufacturers, especially the one which we are today talking about, the personal computer, which in short called PC. The PC manufacturers, so they were like IBM, Compaq, Dell, HP, and so on. So they used these processors and they organized the overall computing system, connecting the peripherals with these processors like the random access memory, read only memory, and other IO devices, other memory, secondary memory, the screen, the keyboard, and all such IO devices were added, and they each of these companies created their own computer organization, and they organized these components as per their requirement, and hence we had a very large variety of processors, and these processors in turn were organized with the other components in a variety of ways, and hence in before the early 1970s and before that, a lot of work was tailor made. So if wanted to say connect a keyboard to the any system, then the system would be this keyboard would require one address so that when a key is pressed, the system can understand that the keyboard is sending some information, and to understand which key is pressed, then there is some protocol. So we need to define some protocol. So these all activities were tailor made by individual who was using any system. So this during early 70s, all these for every activity, that whole thing has to be tailor made by the user. So from scratch, everything has to be created, and it was a big headache, and hence there was no much development because most of the time we are only writing the elementary code, how to interact with the uh, components of the system, how to interact with the peripherals, and how to make a human to interact with the machine, and how to understand the result machine is giving and all that. So most of the time we were busy only in coding for these activities, and that was taking much of our time. Then we have something called Department of Defense, DoD of US government, which wanted to standardize all these activities, because each time any activity has to be done, that if we have to start everything from the scratch, and it was becoming a big headache, so there was no chance of getting forward. So all the time we are stuck with only the basic activity, and the DoD wanted to standardize all these actions, and it makes sense because 70% of the software market was purchased by the DoD. So 70% of the software which was created then was utilized by the DoD, and it was having the say number one say on whatever software developers were to follow. So whatever DoD says, the other software developers had to follow those days, because 70% of the share was by the DoD. And the DoD was using IBM computers, and IBM computers in turn was using Intel processors, and that link made the whole evolution, revolution, whatever we call. So the whole scenario is early 70s. There were many processors, many organizations of these systems, and for each of these, any software required was built by the user as a tailor-made softwares. And when DoD thought of standardizing this, because interoperability and the one software written by one can be easily used by someone else, and that is only possible when there are some standards, and if we everyone follows that particular standard, then interoperability, exchange of the information, exchange of the tools, exchange of the code, everything is possible. And the another reason why software world has to bow down to DoD is it's a 70% market share, and because DoD is 70% of the software purchaser, so every software would like to oblige with what DoD says, and DoD was using IBM computers, IBM computer in turn was using Intel processor, and through this, what happened is IBM format, Intel, IBM's organization, and Intel's architecture, Intel's instruction set, Intel's other pin diagrams, and all that's become a standard. And this time, the Microsoft grabbed the opportunity instead of having these individual codes separately. So if you want to use a keyboard, we use the software. If we want to use a display, 7 segment display or something, we need a code. If we want to put it on the dot matrix display, we need a code. If we want to get it printed, we need a code. And that way, we just need one code for every activity. And these codes were written for Intel processor using Intel processors instruction set and using the IBM computers organization. So these all were taken and compiled all these functionalities together and came out with something called disk operating system, and this very famously known as MS-DOS, because MS stands for Microsoft and DOS, DOS, disk operating system. So this is the you can say commercially first software available for any PC to use. So Microsoft conquered the world through compiling all the functionalities available to work with, and they wanted to target the major market, and the major market is Department of Defense, and Department of Defense used IBM computers. So Microsoft targeted the IBM organization of the system, and then IBM in turn was using Intel processor. Therefore, Microsoft targeted the instruction set of the Intel processor, and that way the whole uh, DOS disk operating system came into existence. And because of this, the next revolution started was everybody wanted to be with the standard, because once I come to know that all these standards are available, it's no point in creating all these tools again from the scratch. So why not use the readily available tool, which is MS-DOS? So everybody wanted to use MS-DOS because it is available. So we don't have to scratch our head and create all the tools for interacting with our peripherals and all that. So the problem there is they wanted IBM type of system, and in turn they want a Intel processor and all that. So this created a problem to other companies like the Compaq, Dell, and other companies who were using other processors like manufactured by Texas Instruments or Motorola or Zilog or AMD and all other processors. So to keep themselves alive in the market, the other companies just cloned the IBM architecture and the organization. So IBM organization means the central processing unit is some Intel processor, and then the motherboard is created such that the IO devices have a similar addresses and all that, similar functionalities for each IO devices to be used, and that gave birth to a new term called IBM compatible. In 1980s and 90s, this term was very much famous, very much common, and anybody wanted to purchase a personal computer, first they would ask for IBM computer, because if I go for IBM computer, then I can just make use of the MS-DOS, and I don't have to waste my time in creating all these tools myself. I don't have to tailor make any of these tools. Therefore, I just would like to purchase IBM computer, but then other computer market just dropped down. So they came out with this idea that they created one translator, a translating layer between the hardware and the outside world. So inside the hardware, they have their own system. So it may be a Dell system or it may be any other one, and which in turn may be using a TI processor or Motorola processor or Zilog processor or whatever it is. But there was one translator, so the user used to talk in MS-DOS language, and MS-DOS language is converted to the native language of the hardware, and the hardware understands its own language and performs all the operations required and gives back the answer. But the answer given was in its own native language, which is linked to the user, and hence it is retranslated back to the MS-DOS language and comes out. So this translation from DOS to the native and native back to the DOS was implemented, and that's what we just call it cloning IBM architecture and organization. And then they started selling their systems with a label called IBM compatible, and they started claiming that whatever IBM computer can do, our system also can do. So you can happily use the MS-DOS for your operations on our system. So that way, the IBM become a standard, and because of IBM, Intel became a standard those days. So now new things have come up again, and there are a lot of technology changes and all. But the first revolution of personal computers happened in late 70s and early 80s, and this is what the story is all about, how uh, operating system came to existence. So, and because of all this, the operating system was born. Till then, there was nothing like operating system. Each one was doing their own tailor-made softwares. But once this whole thing was compiled by the Microsoft, and MS-DOS was created, then a operating system was born. Yeah, rest is the history. Then the DOS was there, the various versions of the DOS were there, then Windows came and that continued. So we are not here into discussing about all different versions of the DOS and all that. But yes, we are just trying to see how the term operating system was tossed and why, and what was the need for all this. It just began by the R&D team of Department of Defense, US government, who wanted to standardize this whole thing. So their work gave birth to this all. So we are whatever systems we are using, it's all because of the origin which happened in the Department of Defense through IBM computer, through Intel processor, and then all that. So that's a history of operating system. And then let's keep looking at the various details about operating systems in the coming sessions. So keep watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe the channel, and hit the bell icon so that you get whenever a new episode is published, you will get a signal. So thanks.